The shuttle landed on station Orion 7 with a soft hum, stepped out into the massive docking bay and looked around. Hundreds of alien creatures moved in every direction. Some were tall with 4 arms. Others had shells like insects. A few looked like walking mountains made of stone. All of them carried weapons. Carried nothing. She was 20 years old, small for a human, with black hair tied back in a simple ponytail. Her hands were covered with thin gloves. She wore the standard uniform of a new cadet, but unlike the others, she had no blade at her hip, no gun on her back, no claws growing from her fingers. A tall creature with blue skin and 4 arms walked toward her. His uniform was decorated with golden marks that showed his high rank. This was High Instructor, the leader of the Academy's training council. "You are the human?" he asked. His voice was deep and cold. "Yes, sir, my name is." Looked at her empty hands. His 4 eyes blinked slowly. "Where is your weapon?" "I don't have one, sir." The aliens nearby stopped walking. They turned to look at her. A group of warriors, each one over 2 meters tall with sharp claws that glowed with plasma energy, began to laugh. Their laughter sounded like breaking glass. "She has no weapon," one of them said loudly. "The humans sent us a joke." Raised one of his hands for silence. "The Galactic Military Academy accepts only warriors. Every cadet must have a combat specialty. What is yours?" Met his eyes without looking away. "I am still learning, sir." "Learning?" A cadet pushed forward through the crowd. He was covered in a hard shell and blade-like arms grew from his shoulders. His name was, and he was known as one of the strongest fighters in his year. "This is not a school for children. We are here to become weapons of war. What can a tiny human with no claws, no armor, and no weapon possibly learn here?" Said nothing. She simply stood there calm and quiet. Studied her for a long moment. "The testing will begin now. Follow me." The testing room was a large white space filled with machines and screens. Stood in the center while scanners moved around her body. They measured her strength, her speed, her reflexes. They searched for hidden abilities or genetic modifications. The results appeared on a large screen. Commander, the only human instructor at the academy, stood beside and read them. His face grew worried. "No enhanced strength," the computer said. "No natural weapons, no defensive adaptations, no registered combat training. Classification, weaponless. Recommendation, reassignment to support division." The alien cadets who had gathered to watch began to whisper and laugh again. His voice was the loudest. "Send her home. She will die in the first real training exercise." Stepped forward. He was an older man with hair and scars on his face from many battles. "The results are clear. Perhaps the support division would be a better fit. There is no shame in." "I want to stay." His voice was soft but firm. "Please give me a chance." Looked at, the human commander's face was hard to read. Finally spoke. "Very well. You have 1 lunar cycle to prove yourself. If you cannot demonstrate combat ability by then, you will be expelled. This is not negotiable." "Thank you, sir." The crowd broke apart. Cadets returned to their training. Was assigned to a small room in the dormitory section. Her roommate was already there when she arrived. It was a female named Riss, tall and powerful, with plasma claws that hummed with deadly energy. Riss looked at and shook her head. "You are my roommate, the weaponless one." "Yes." Riss laughed, but there was no kindness in it. "I will bet my next meal that you do not last 1 week. Nothing personal, human, but you do not belong here." Put her small bag on the bed. She did not argue. She did not explain. She simply nodded and began to unpack her few belongings. That night, after Riss had fallen asleep, sat on her bed in the darkness. The station was quiet. The only sound was the soft hum of the life support systems. Slowly removed her gloves. Her hands looked normal at first, but then a faint blue light began to glow from her palms. It was soft, like moonlight underwater. She picked up a small metal cup from her bedside table. The cup was made of standard station alloy, nothing special. She held it between her palms. The blue light grew brighter. The metal began to change. It softened like clay in her hands. She pressed and folded it, shaping it with her fingers. In less than a minute, the cup became a small, perfect knife. Then she changed it again, back into a cup, then into a thin needle, then into a tiny flower with sharp petals. Looked at the metal flower in her palm. This was her secret. This was what she had hidden all her life. On Earth, there were people like her. They were rare, maybe 1 in 10 million. They called themselves forgers. They could touch metal and reshape it with their minds and hands. They could make anything into anything else. The Academy called her Weaponless. They thought she was weak because she carried no blade and had no claws. They did not understand. Did not need to carry a weapon. She could make one from anything she touched. She put her gloves back on and lay down on her bed. Tomorrow, the real training would begin. Tomorrow, they would try to break her, but had not come to this place to fail. She had come to show the galaxy what humans really were. She closed her eyes and smiled in the darkness. Let them laugh, she thought. Let them all laugh. They would learn soon enough. The weeks that followed were the hardest of life. Every morning began with combat training at 6. Every evening ended with her body covered in bruises. The other cadets were faster, stronger, and better armed than her, and they made sure she knew it. Instructor was a human veteran with a shaved head and arms covered in old scars. He had fought in 3 wars and survived things that would kill most soldiers. He was also the hardest teacher had ever known. Again, he shouted as fell to the ground for the 10th time that hour. Her practice staff had broken again. The cadet she was fighting had barely moved. Got up, her legs were shaking. Her hands were bleeding through her gloves, but she picked up another staff and faced her opponent again. Your weapon is weak, said. Your stance is wrong, your speed is too slow. How do you expect to survive? I will find a way, sir. Shook his head. Finding a way is not enough. You need to be better, faster, stronger. Right now you are nothing. The other cadets watched and whispered. Some laughed. Some looked at her with pity, which was somehow worse. Riss stood with her arms crossed, watching with cold eyes. She had won her bet, had lasted more than a week, but just barely. The worst was, the warrior seemed to hate more than anyone else. He waited for her in the hallways. He tripped her in the dining hall. He whispered cruel things when the instructors were not looking. Little human, he said one day after training, why do you not go home? Your people are weak. You have no place among real warriors. Did not answer. She simply walked past him, her head held high. This made angry. He was not used to being ignored. During the next sparring session, volunteered to be her opponent. The instructor allowed it. What happened next was not an accident. Moved fast, faster than necessary for a training match. His blade arm came down and cut deep into his forearm. Blood sprayed across the training floor, fell to her knees, holding her arm. Oh, said his voice flat. I am sorry, it was a training accident. She moved the wrong way. The medical team came and took to the healing bay. The doctors fixed her arm with advanced medicine. The wound closed in hours, but no one punished. No one even questioned him. Commander visited her that night. He sat beside her bed and looked at her arm. You should go home, he said quietly. There is no shame in it. The academy is not for everyone. I am not leaving. Sighed, you have no weapon. You cannot compete with these creatures. They are born for war. Humans are not. Looked at him. Is that what you believe, Commander, that humans are not made for war? Something changed in his eyes, a small spark of interest. What do you mean? But just shook her head and closed her eyes. Thank you for visiting, sir. I need to rest now. After left, began to plan. She stopped going to the recreation areas. She stopped trying to make friends. Instead, She spent every free moment in the engineering archives. She downloaded files about metals and alloys. She studied the molecular structure of every material used on the station. She learned how titanium was different from steel, how carbon fiber bent under pressure, how certain alloys could hold 10 times their weight. The other cadets thought she had given up. They thought she was hiding in the library because she was afraid. They were wrong. One night, a young human engineer named found her in the fabrication lab. He was thin and tall, with messy black hair and kind eyes. His job was to maintain the station's equipment. "You are not supposed to be here," he said. "This area is for engineers only." "I know, I am sorry. I just needed to understand something." Looked at the metal rod in her hands. It was a simple piece of station alloy meant for repairs. "What are you trying to understand?" Did not answer with words. Instead, she removed one glove. Her hand began to glow with soft blue light. Eyes went wide. He stepped back in fear. The metal rod began to change. It bent and folded in her grip. It became thinner, then thicker, then twisted into a spiral. All without tools, all without heat. Just her hands and the strange light that came from her skin. What are you?" whispered. Looked at him calmly. "I am what Earth made to survive." Stared at the twisted metal. His fear slowly changed to wonder. "I have read about people like you, forgers. I thought they were just stories." "We are real. We are rare, but we are real." "Does anyone else know?" Shook her head. "No, and I needed to stay that way for now." Was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Your secret is safe with me, but why are you here? Why come to a military academy if you have this power?" Reshaped the metal one more time, turning it back into a simple rod. She put her glove back on. "Because," she said, "I want to teach them something. Every alien in this galaxy thinks humans are weak. They think we have no weapons, no claws, no armor. They think we survived by accident." She looked at with fire in her eyes. "I am going to show them the truth. Humans do not need to be born with weapons. We can make weapons from anything, from rocks, from sticks, from the very air we breathe. That is what makes us dangerous. That is what makes us human." Smiled slowly. "Then I think you are going to need some help." From that night on, had her first real ally, and together they began to prepare for what was coming. The announcement came on a cold morning. All cadets were called to the main assembly hall. High Instructor stood on the raised platform, his 4 arms clasped behind his back. His voice echoed through the massive room. "The trial of arms will begin in 3 days. This is the most important test of your first year. Each cadet must defeat 3 opponents using their signature weapon. Victory brings honor. Defeat brings shame. Those without a registered weapon are not permitted to participate." 4 eyes moved through the crowd and found. She stood alone near the back, her gloves covering her hands. "Cadet," he said loudly, "you have no registered weapon. Your lunar cycle ends tomorrow. You have failed to demonstrate combat ability. Your expulsion papers have been filed. A shuttle will take you home in the morning." The hall went silent. Then the whispers began. Some cadets laughed. Others shook their heads, smiled with cruel satisfaction. Riss, standing nearby, looked at with something that might have been pity. "I told you," she said quietly. "You did not belong here." Said nothing. She simply turned and walked out of the hall. That night she sat in the cargo bay alone. It was a large, dark space filled with storage containers and loading equipment. Massive metal desks lined the walls, used for sorting heavy cargo. Each desk weighed at least 300 kilograms, made from reinforced titanium alloy. Had chosen this place on purpose. It was quiet, it was private, and it was full of metal. She heard footsteps behind her, heavy footsteps, more than one person. "Little human's voice came from the shadows. "I heard you are leaving tomorrow. My friends and I wanted to say goodbye." 2 other cadets stepped out of the darkness. They were smaller than, but their blade arms were just as sharp. All three of them moved to surround her. "You should not have come here," said. "You should not have stayed so long. You made us look bad by refusing to quit. Now we need to teach you a lesson about knowing your place." Stood slowly. Her heart was beating fast, but her voice was calm. "I do not want to fight you." "That is funny," laughed, "because I very much want to fight you." He lunged. His blade arm cut through the air toward her face. Moved, not backward but sideways, toward the nearest cargo desk. Her hands found the cold metal surface. She pulled off her gloves. Blue light exploded from her palms. The desk screamed. There was no other word for the sound. The metal twisted and folded like paper in her hands. 300 kilograms of reinforced titanium bent to her will. In 3 seconds the desk was gone. In its place was something new. A hammer. But not just any hammer. This was a weapon of war. The head was dense and massive, compressed until it was heavier than the original desk. The handle was thick and wrapped in a pattern that fit her grip perfectly. The whole thing should have been impossible to lift. It should have weighed more than a small vehicle. Lifted it with one hand. Stopped, his blade arm hung frozen in the air. His eyes went wide with shock and fear. "You wanted to see my weapon," said quietly. Her voice was steady. Her eyes were cold. "Here it is." The two others turned and ran. They did not look back. They did not stop running until they were out of the cargo bay and far down the corridor. Was alone now. He stepped backward, his confidence completely gone. What are you? What is this?" Walked toward him slowly. The massive hammer rested on her shoulder like it weighed nothing. Blue light still glowed faintly from her hands. "I am human," she said. "We are not born with weapons. We are not born with armor or claws or venom, but we survived anyway. Do you know why?" Shook his head. He could not speak. "Because we learned to make weapons from everything around us. Rocks became knives. Trees became spears. Metal became swords and guns and bombs. We turned the universe itself into our arsenal." She stopped right in front of him. The hammer came down and smashed into the floor beside his feet. The impact shook the entire cargo bay. Cracks spread across the metal floor. "I could kill you right now," said, "but I will not, because unlike you I do not hurt people who cannot fight back. Remember that." She turned and walked away, leaving standing in the damaged cargo bay, trembling. 15 minutes later, Commander arrived. He had been called by security after the two cadets reported a dangerous incident in the cargo section. He found sitting on a container, the impossible hammer resting across her knees. "Care to explain?" he asked. "They tried to attack me. I defended myself." Looked at the hammer. He looked at the cracked floor. He looked at its calm face. Then, for the first time since she had arrived at the academy, he smiled. "That hammer," he said, "how much does it weigh?" "More than the desk I made it from. I compressed the metal, changed its density." "And you can lift it?" "Yes." "Can anyone else?" Smiled back. "No, I do not think so." Laughed. It was a real laugh, full of surprise and wonder. "I think we need to have a conversation with the council. Your shuttle home might be delayed." He offered her his hand, took it and stood. "Come," said, "it is time to show them what humans really are." Together, they walked out of the cargo bay. Behind them, the cracked floor and the empty space where a desk used to be told a story that would soon spread across the entire station. The weaponless human had found her weapon, and no one would ever call her weak again. The story spread through the academy like fire through dry grass. By morning, every cadet had heard about the weaponless human who turned a cargo desk into a hammer that no one else could lift. At first, many did not believe it, so they went to see for themselves. The cargo bay became the most visited place on the station. Cadets lined up to try lifting the hammer that had left behind. Warriors, famous for their strength, grabbed the handle and pulled with all their power. The hammer did not move. Soldiers with their hard shells and powerful muscles tried next. They failed too. Even the massive creatures made of living stone could not lift it from the ground. The hammer sat there, silent and impossible, proving that something had changed. High Instructor called an emergency meeting of the council. Commander stood beside as she faced the alien leaders of the academy. "This is impossible," said. His 4 eyes studied her with new interest. "Our scanners showed no special abilities. How did you hide this?" "I did not hide it," replied. "Your scanners looked for the wrong things. You searched for natural weapons, claws, venom, enhanced muscles, but what I have is not a natural weapon. It is something else." "Explain." Removed her gloves. Her hands began to glow with soft blue light. "On Earth there are people like me. We are called forgers. We can feel the structure of metal and other materials. We can change that structure with our touch. We can make things harder, denser, sharper. We can reshape matter itself." She picked up a small metal cup from the table and changed it into a knife, then a flower, then back into a cup. The council members watched in silence. "Your expulsion is cancelled," said finally. "You will participate in the trial of arms." The trial began the next day. The combat arena was a massive circular space with seats rising high on all sides. Thousands of cadets and instructors gathered to watch. The rules were simple. Each fighter must defeat 3 opponents using their weapon. Surrender or unconsciousness meant defeat. His first opponent was Riss. The warrior walked into the arena with her plasma claws glowing hot and bright. She looked at with respect now, not mockery. "I was wrong about you," Riss said, "but I will not hold back." "I do not want you to." The signal sounded. Riss charged. She was fast, faster than anything had faced in training. Her claws cut through the air, leaving trails of burning light, but had spent weeks watching, learning, understanding how each species moved. She swung the massive hammer in a wide arc. Riss dodged, but the wind from the swing pushed her off balance, spun and brought the hammer down. Riss rolled away just in time. They fought for 3 minutes. Riss scored small hits, burning marks on arms and legs, but she could not get close enough for a killing blow. The hammer was too long, too heavy, too fast in hands. Finally saw her chance. She swung low, and when Riss jumped over the hammer, reversed her grip and brought the handle up. It caught Riss in the chest and threw her backward. Before they could recover, was on top of her, the hammer pressing down on her shoulders. "Yield," said. Riss tried to push up. The hammer did not move. "I yield," she said finally. The crowd was silent for a moment. Then the cheering began. Second opponent was a champion named. He was 3 meters tall and looked like a mountain that had learned to walk. His body was made of dark stone, and his fists could crush metal. "Little human," said, his voice like rocks grinding together. "You beat but you cannot beat me. I am stone. Your hammer means nothing." Smiled, "Then let us find out." Charged. He was slower than Riss but far more powerful. Each step cracked the arena floor. When he swung his fist, the air itself seemed to shake. Did not try to block. She moved around him, striking at his joints, his knees, his elbows. The hammer hit with sounds like thunder. Cracks appeared in stone skin. But he did not fall. He turned and caught with a backhand blow that sent her flying across the arena. She hit the wall hard and fell to the ground. The crowd gasped, some cheered for. Got up slowly. Her body was screaming with pain, but she was not done. She looked at her hammer. It had worked against flesh and shell, but stone needed something different. Her hands glowed brighter. The hammer began to change. The head stretched and flattened. A curved blade grew from one side. The weapon became longer, thinner, designed for cutting instead of crushing. Watched with confusion. "What are you doing?" "Adapting," said. She attacked again. This time her blade found the cracks she had made before. She cut into them, widened them, weakened the stone. Swung wildly, but she was too fast now, dancing around him like water around a rock. Finally, she drove the blade deep into his knee. Fell. Before he could rise, she was behind him, the blade at his throat. "Yield," she said. Was silent for a long moment. Then he laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "I yield," he said. "Well fought, little human, well fought." The final opponent was. The warrior had demanded the right to face her. He entered the arena with ceremonial war scythes, ancient weapons passed down through his family for generations. His eyes burned with hate and shame. "You humiliated me," he hissed. "Now I will destroy you." This fight was different, was not just strong, he was skilled. He had trained with those scythes since childhood. His movements were perfect, deadly, beautiful in their violence. He cut again and again. Blood flowed from her arms, her legs, her face. The crowd went quiet. It looked like she was losing. But every time broke her weapon, she made a new one. The blade became a shield. The shield became a spear. The spear became a net of razor wire that tangled his scythes and cut his hands. Screamed with frustration, "Stop changing, fight me properly." "This is how I fight," said. Blood dripped from her chin. "This is what humans do. We adapt, we change, we survive." She reshaped her weapon one final time. It became a simple staff, long and strong. She blocked his next attack, stepped inside his guard, and struck him 3 times in quick succession. Chest, throat, knee. Fell to the ground. His scythes clattered away from his hands. He tried to get up, but his body would not obey. Stood over him, the staff pointed at his heart. "What are you?" gasped. It was the same question he had asked before. His answer was the same, but now everyone could hear it. "I am human. We do not come with natural weapons, so we learn to make everything into one." She lowered her staff and turned away. Behind her, the arena exploded with sound. Cheering, roaring, stamping. Even the alien species who had mocked her were on their feet, shouting her name. Had won the trial of arms. And nothing at the academy would ever be the same. The council chamber was silent. High Instructor sat at the center of a long, curved table. Around him were the leaders of every major species in the academy. They all stared at the small human woman standing before them. "We need an explanation," said. "What we saw in the arena should not be possible. You created weapons from raw matter. You changed their shape while fighting. Our scientists say this breaks several known laws of physics." Commander stepped forward. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time. "May I speak?" he asked. Nodded. Turned to face the council. His voice was calm but strong. "For thousands of years, the galaxy has looked at humans and seen weakness. We have no natural armor, no claws or venom, no special organs or abilities that help us survive. Many species wondered how we ever climbed out of our caves." He paused and looked at. "But you were asking the wrong question. You should have asked why we needed to climb out. What was Earth like that it produced creatures like us?" "Go on," said. "Earth is what we call a death world. The gravity is heavy. The weather is violent. The predators are everywhere. Disease fills the air and the water. Everything on our planet is trying to kill us all the time. We had no natural weapons to fight back with, so we made our own. Walked to the window and looked out at the stars. First, we picked up rocks and used them to break bones. Then we sharpened sticks and used them to pierce flesh. We discovered fire and used it to burn our enemies. We found metal and turned it into swords, guns, bombs. We split the atom and used its power to destroy entire cities." He turned back to the council. "Humans do not have natural weapons because we do not need them. We can turn anything into a weapon. That is our gift. That is what evolution gave us." "And this woman," pointed at, "what is she?" "She is a forger. They are rare among humans. Perhaps 1 in 10 million is born with this ability. They can touch matter and reshape it with their minds. They can feel the structure of metals and change it instantly. They are the expression of what humanity truly is." The council members looked at each other. fear and wonder mixed in their alien eyes. "Why did Earth send her here?" one of them asked. "Why reveal this secret now?" Answered herself, "Because you needed to learn. For too long, the galaxy has treated humans as the weak species, the ones who survived by accident, the ones who need protection." She held up her hands. Blue light glowed softly from her palms. "I came here to show you the truth. We are not weak. We are not helpless. We are the species that turned rocks into starships. We are the species that climbed from caves to the edges of the universe. We are the species that makes weapons from anything we touch." She let the light fade. "Underestimate us at your peril." The chamber was quiet for a long time, then spoke. "We have made a decision. The Academy will create a new combat classification for you. You will be called an adaptive armament specialist. You will be the first of your kind, but perhaps not the last." He stood and gave her a formal bow. "Welcome to the Academy, cadet. We look forward to seeing what you will become." The news spread across the station and beyond. Within days, humans everywhere were talking about the girl who turned a desk into a weapon. Within weeks, other forgers began to come forward. They had been hiding all their lives, afraid of being seen as different. Now they had a reason to be proud. Was one of them. The young engineer had always felt strange when he touched metal, but he thought it was just his imagination. After watching fights, he tried reshaping a small piece of steel. It worked. His hands glowed with the same blue light. "I cannot believe it," he said, staring at the twisted metal in his palm. "I have this power too." Smiled at him. "You always did, you just needed permission to use it." Riss came to her quarters one evening. The tall looked uncomfortable, but her voice was sincere. "I want to apologize," she said. "I treated you badly when you arrived. I was wrong." "It is forgotten." "No, it should not be forgotten. I underestimated you because of how you looked. I will not make that mistake again." She paused. "I have requested to be assigned to your training squad, if you will have me." Nodded. "I would be honored." Even changed. He did not become friendly, but he stopped being cruel. When he passed in the halls now, he gave her a small nod of respect. The hatred in his eyes had been replaced by something else. Understanding, perhaps, or fear. 6 months later, a new group of cadets arrived at Station Orion 7. They gathered in the same docking bay where had once stood alone, mocked and dismissed. Among them was a young human boy. He was thin and quiet, with dark hair and nervous eyes. He carried nothing but a small bag. No weapon hung from his belt. An instructor looked down at him with disapproval. "Another weaponless human. When will your species learn?" Before the boy could answer, a voice came from behind. "He is not weaponless." The instructor turned, stood there in her new uniform decorated with the marks of her rank. The massive hammer was not with her. She did not need it. Everyone knew what she could do. "None of us are weaponless," said. She walked forward and put her hand on the boy's shoulder. "We just have not decided what to make yet." She looked at the new cadets, human and alien alike. They stared back at her with wide eyes. They had all heard the stories. They all knew who she was. "The galaxy is full of species born with weapons," said. "Claws and fangs and armor and venom. They think that makes them strong. They are wrong." Blue light began to glow from her hands. Behind her, and 3 other human forgers did the same. The light filled the docking bay like dawn breaking over a dark world. "True strength is not what you are born with. True strength is what you make yourself into. Humans understand this better than anyone. We came from nothing. We built everything, and we are just getting started." She turned and walked away, the other forgers following her. The new cadets watched them go in silent wonder. The young human boy looked down at his own hands. They were just ordinary hands. No claws, no special powers, not yet. But for the first time in his life, he did not feel weak. He felt like he could become anything. And somewhere in the stars, Earth watched and smiled. Its children were growing up. They were taking their place among the giants of the galaxy. And one day soon, everyone would know what humans were truly capable of. The Academy had called her Weaponless. They would never make that mistake again.